If you're buying a dental practice, should you also buy the practice real estate? Now, I love these videos because more than anything, I love being able to give clear, concise answers to complex questions like this. So this is an obvious one. The answer is, it depends. Sorry. What the answer depends on is less about money than you would think. So the first thing I'm going to talk about with this video is everyone thinks this is a financial decision. They think that if I'm renting my space as a dental practice owner, I'm just throwing money down a garbage pit. I might as well open up the garbage disposal and start shoving $100 bills in there. I can understand that sentiment. I own lots of things and I'm happy that I do. However, when I, as an accountant, do a lease versus buy analysis, that is, when I pull the numbers and look at everything in totality, not just whether or not I'm paying down a principal and then I'm going to own something in the future. When I look at property taxes, facility and maintenance charges, when you start to add in the amount of time it takes to be the landlord of a building, which, let's be honest, if you own the building, you are your own landlord. If a pipe breaks, if the ceiling falls through, if you need to put a new roof on or the sidewalk needs to be replaced, you don't have a landlord to call. You are the landlord. When you run all of those numbers and start assigning values to some of the less tangible items, the numbers actually come out pretty close. Whether or not you rent or you own the building that you work in as a dentist, don't make a mistake of thinking that the building is a productive asset. It is not. The building value can go up over time, but it also doesn't have to. The productive asset that you own as a dental practice owner is the dental practice. The work that you do with patients in their mouths, that's the productive asset, not the building. So number one is don't think that you're making a purely financial decision because you are not. That being said, all other things being equal, I do tend to fall on the side of owning the building versus leasing, but not just because of the money. Why do I recommend owning if you can? If you can, I like owning for two reasons. The first is the most important, and that is control. When you own the real estate, you control the asset. No one can kick you out of your space. Short of an eminent domain situation, which would be totally crazy, if you're in a practice and you own the building, you're there for as long as you want to be there. If the building doesn't fit you and you want to move, it's a pain, but you can do it. If you want to sell the building in the future, you can do that. If you want to own the building forever and pass it on to your heirs, you can try to do that as well. The control of ownership is a big deal. So if you can buy the real estate, and you tend to be like most dentists and most of my clients, you like some control. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I am saying think about buying control. The second reason that I come down on the side of owning versus renting is that when you own a practice, you're almost certainly going to borrow money to buy that building. And when you borrow money, you have to make the loan payment, right? If you miss the loan payment, that building is no longer yours. Right? The bank's going to come and take it from you. So owning the building is a form of it's a forced savings plan, right? You're going to think that you're not throwing money down a pit to rent, when in reality, what you're doing is you're saving money in the form of a building. And yes, you can turn around and sell that building when you retire from your practice or when you move or it's time to sell the building. So, should you own or rent? I say own if you can because of control and a forced savings plan, but if you're in a situation where it's just impossible, you can't own the building for whatever reason. Seller's not going to sell, it's part of a strip mall that's not going to chop out that little piece, it's part of a medical complex and then ownership just isn't a possibility. Big deal. If you like the practice and you're going to rent for your career, I know dozens and hundreds of dentists who have rented for their entire careers and are phenomenally financially successful. When I talk about control as an owner, it's a real thing. But let's be realistic for a second. When you think about all the different types of tenants that landlords can have in a space, a physical space, dentists are about the very best tenant possible in a commercial space, period. You dentists are professional. You don't fill up parking lots because your patients come and go. There aren't a lot of weird smells and loud noises, right? So dentists are the ideal tenants. So yes, if you own the building, you own some control, but let's be realistic. If you're renting and you're a dentist, you've got a decent amount of control as well, just by virtue of the type of business you're running. You're not a Taco Bell, you're not a CrossFit gym dropping weights, you're not some crazy business that is going to drive away other tenants. Dentists are a very stable business and landlords love you guys. So should you buy the building, yes or no? Slight preference to yes, but no is not a disaster. You can be very successful renting your space. So let's say that ownership of the building is on the table and you can do it. What do you need to think about? Well, first you need to think about paying for the building, and second, you need to think about the pros and the cons of the specific space that you're looking at. Let's talk about paying for the building first. When you buy the building, the lending rules are a little different than buying the practice. When you buy the practice, you're the safest loan on the planet, next to funeral homes. Dentists get money thrown at them by banks, almost literally, for 100% of the value of the dental practice. The same is generally not true for the building. Banks are changing their rules, but the traditional real estate rule is you have to have a 20% down payment on the building. Now, as I'm recording that, the banking rules are starting to shift here. So you might get to do a 10% down payment. I'm even hearing rumors that there are a few banks out there considering doing 0% down payments on the real estate. But that is definitely not the rule today. So when you're buying the building, cash becomes a concern. Do you have enough cash to show the bank that you're liquid as a business owner? And the general rule of thumb there is $50,000 plus. And do you have the down payment on the real estate? 20% of whatever that building's worth can be a pretty big number, and a lot of buyers don't have the cash to do both right up front. So number one is ask your lender about the financial considerations of buying the real estate. The second consideration, if you are thinking about buying the building, is the building itself. Now, I can't tell you whether or not the building you're looking at is good or bad, but I can tell you some things to think about. The first is that I see a lot of dental sellers who somewhere in their 50s built a gigantic palace to themselves. They've built this magnificent building that they're so proud of. And it has 12 operatories, and it has this beautiful fish tank up front. I don't see many fish tanks anymore, but you know what I'm talking about. The dental office where the seller clearly wanted a beautiful space to come into. Nothing wrong with that, except if those facility costs are over 10% of collections, now you own the Taj Mahal, and you gotta pay for it, and you gotta keep the upkeep going, and you gotta fix things and pay for the utilities and the heating and the air conditioning and everything else. That building may be beautiful, but is it more than you really need? That's number one. Number two is kind of the reverse of that. Is the space big enough to meet your goals? General rule of thumb, buyers that I work with, is they want 4 to 6 operatories. If the space you're looking at only has 3 operatories, is there an option to expand the facility? Can you grow the physical square footage of that office to put in more operatories? Because if you can't, now your growth is constrained as a business owner, and all because of that building. Whereas if you had rented that space, you could have grown the practice to kind of its maximum capacity with 3 operatories, and then, yeah, pain in the butt, but you can move that practice down the street to a bigger space and then continue to grow the business. There is a lot to think about with the building. Whether or not you buy is a highly personal decision, both emotionally, financially, and from a business perspective. When I'm online, Facebook, Dentaltown, other places, people talk in definitives about the real estate as if it's a foregone conclusion, that every dentist on the planet should just own real estate, as if it's this magical unicorn investment that always goes up no matter what. The real estate underlying your dental practice is a big deal. You need to understand the implications of buying or renting and whether or not they're the right fit for you. Hopefully this video has given you a few questions to ask and some directions to head in. As you get to making your decision, I'd be honored to be the one to help you think through the pros and cons and the right approach. Head over to dentalbuyeradvocates.com to find free articles, book, resources, podcasts, all about the decision to buy the real estate and other things related to the purchase of a dental practice. I'd be honored to work with you, and if you just need an answer to a quick question, feel free to reach out anytime. Good luck.